Could it be true that the mysterious Beauty in Black is actually Charles Norman's son? This question has been spreading like wildfire among fans, sparking endless discussions, heated debates, and theories that refuse to die down. The idea might sound wild at first, but when you look closer, the pieces begin to fit together in surprising ways. Charles Norman has always been a character wrapped in power and secrecy. He's known as someone who operates in the shadows, a man whose past is full of unanswered questions. While many see him as ruthless and calculated, others notice the rare cracks in his armor, moments where his silence feels heavier than his words. Fans often describe him as a figure who holds secrets bigger than himself, secrets that may explain more about the world around him than we realize. And then, into the story steps the enigmatic Beauty in Black. Beauty in Black is a character whose presence alone changes the energy of every scene. Unlike others, he doesn't need words to command attention. His silence speaks volumes. His fashion, his aura, and the mystery around his true identity keep everyone guessing. Who is he? Where does he come from? Why does he always appear when tension reaches its highest point? It's this perfect storm of mystery that has made him one of the most talked about figures among fans. Now here's where the theory begins to spark interest. People have noticed that Beauty in Black shares certain qualities that feel eerily familiar to longtime followers of Charles Norman's story. Both men carry themselves with a kind of unshakable calm, even in the face of chaos. Both seem to hold back their emotions as if revealing too much would expose something they cannot afford to show. And perhaps most importantly, both are surrounded by an almost unspoken sense of legacy. As if they were cut from the same cloth, the possibility that Charles Norman could be the father of Beauty in Black changes the entire perspective of their characters. Suddenly, what once seemed like coincidence starts to feel like deliberate storytelling. Their appearances are not just parallel. They may be deeply connected by blood and history. If this theory is true, then Beauty in Black is not just another mysterious character. He could be the continuation of Norman's story, the living proof of secrets Norman has tried to bury. Fans argue that this would explain why Beauty in Black never reveals too much about his past. After all, a man carrying such a legacy would need to protect his truth at any cost, and this is only the beginning. Once you consider their similarities, the next logical step is to dive deeper into their physical resemblance, their timelines, and the hidden clues left scattered across the story. Fans are not just making random guesses. They are connecting dots that, when put together, paint a very convincing picture. One of the first things fans noticed about Beauty in Black is how he moves. His body language is sharp, controlled, and deliberate. Every step feels calculated, as if nothing is left to chance. This is strikingly similar to Charles Norman, who has always been known for his composed and intimidating presence. Norman doesn't waste words or gestures. Even when he's silent, the tension around him is heavy. Beauty in Black mirrors this exact quality. He doesn't need to raise his voice to dominate a moment. His stillness alone carries weight. It's the kind of presence that feels inherited, almost like a trait passed down from father to son. Then there's the way Beauty in Black dresses. The choice of all black attire is more than just a style statement. Fans believe it symbolizes a hidden link to Norman's legacy. Charles Norman, throughout his appearances, has been tied to the color black, whether in subtle details of his clothing, the shadows he lingers in, or the environments that surround him. Black has always been his symbol of authority, secrecy, and unshakable strength. Beauty in Black doesn't just wear black, he embodies it. It's almost as though he has taken his father's symbol and turned it into his own identity. To many, this feels less like coincidence and more like a quiet acknowledgement of where he came from. Another detail often pointed out is their eyes. Fans have gone frame by frame, comparing shots of Norman's piercing gaze with that of Beauty in Black. Both men have this uncanny way of staring straight through a person, as if reading their thoughts without speaking a word. It isn't just a casual glance. It's an expression that says they already know more than they reveal. While some argue that this is simply a character trait, others insist it's one of the strongest hints of a bloodline connection. It's rare for two characters to be written with such similar intensity unless there's a deliberate reason. Behaviorally, the parallels run even deeper. Charles Norman has always been careful about revealing his emotions. He hides vulnerability under layers of control, showing weakness only in moments where it truly matters. Beauty in Black behaves the exact same way. Even in chaotic situations, he doesn't crack. His voice remains steady, his actions measured. This kind of discipline isn't something easily learned, it's either trained by someone with the same qualities or naturally inherited. The resemblance is so uncanny that fans believe Norman might have directly shaped Beauty in Black, either as a mentor or, more shockingly, as a father. Another clue lies in the way they both deal with enemies. Norman never rushes into conflict. He studies his opponent, waits for the perfect moment, and then strikes with precision. Beauty in Black follows the same rhythm. He doesn't fight with brute force or messy emotions. Instead, his moves feel almost choreographed, cold, and exact. Observers describe it as Norman's strategy reborn. Could this be simple admiration? Perhaps Beauty in Black modeled himself after Norman. But fans argue the consistency of these shared behaviors hints at something deeper, an inherited mindset, a genetic bond that shapes both men in the same way. Let's also talk about silence. Silence is one of the most powerful storytelling tools, and both characters use it like a weapon. Norman's silence is legendary. It makes others fill in the gaps with fear or doubt. Beauty in Black uses silence in the same way, leaving people unsettled, questioning what he knows or what he's planning. For audiences who followed Norman for years, watching Beauty in Black operate feels like déjà vu. It's as though the writers have planted Norman's spirit into a younger, equally enigmatic figure. Even subtle gestures add to the theory. The tilt of the head, the slow narrowing of the eyes, the measured pauses before speaking, all of these mannerisms match. Fans have compiled countless clips comparing Norman and Beauty in Black side by side, pointing out these small yet powerful similarities. While skeptics dismiss them as creative coincidences, the sheer number of these parallels is difficult to ignore. And then comes the question of legacy. Norman, despite being powerful, has always been portrayed as a man haunted by unfinished business. He is a character who suggests depth beyond what the audience sees, as if parts of his life remain hidden in the shadows. Beauty in Black, appearing out of nowhere, fills that gap perfectly. His behavior is not only reflective of Norman's but also feels like the natural extension of it, as though the story is continuing through him. All of these visual and behavioral clues pile up into something more than speculation. They form a pattern, a design that feels intentional. Whether it's in their calm, intimidating stares, their choice of black as an emblem, or their eerily similar ways of handling silence and power, the evidence seems to shout louder than words. Beauty in Black is not just a random character. He may very well be carrying the bloodline of Charles Norman. When exploring the possibility that Beauty in Black could be Charles Norman's son, the timeline becomes one of the most fascinating puzzle pieces. Fans have spent hours piecing together fragments of Norman's past, trying to see if the ages and histories line up in a way that makes sense. And strangely enough, they do. Charles Norman's story has always been told with gaps, periods of time when he disappears from the narrative, only to return later with more influence and secrets than before. These missing years have been the subject of endless debate. What was Norman doing during those times? Who did he meet? What relationships did he hide? And most importantly, did one of those lost chapters include the birth of a son? Beauty in Black's emergence fits perfectly into those blank spaces. He seems to appear just at the right moment, when Norman's shadow over the story begins to fade. To many fans, this is no accident. It feels like Beauty in Black was written into the story to carry on what Norman left unfinished. The backstory of Beauty in Black is equally shrouded in mystery. Unlike other characters who have clear introductions, his origin is kept vague. He doesn't talk about where he came from, who raised him, or why he chose the identity he now lives by. This lack of explanation is unusual for such an important figure. Normally, storytellers give at least some breadcrumbs to explain a character's past. But with Beauty in Black, silence fills the space. For fans, this silence doesn't feel like laziness in writing, it feels intentional, like a secret waiting to be revealed at the right time. And what could be more dramatic than unveiling him as Norman's hidden son? There are also subtle references scattered in Norman's backstory that fans believe point toward this theory. For instance, Norman often hints that he has responsibilities beyond what people see. He has moments where he reflects on what he's left behind or on mistakes that can't be undone. At the time, audiences assumed he was speaking about his political decisions, his betrayals, or his enemies. But now, when viewed through the lens of this theory, those cryptic words take on a whole new meaning. Could he have been speaking about a son he could not acknowledge? Could Beauty in Black be the unfinished business Norman carries in silence? The age alignment only strengthens this argument. Based on the established timeline, Beauty in Black is old enough to believably be Norman's child. The years line up in such a way that, if Norman had fathered a son during his hidden years, Beauty in Black would be exactly the right age when he finally appears. This alignment doesn't feel random, it feels like a clue the creators left for careful fans to discover. Another piece of the backstory puzzle lies in the parallels of their journeys. Norman is a man who rose to power from the shadows, shaping events while rarely exposing his full hand. Beauty in Black follows the same path. He doesn't arrive with a grand introduction or flashy display. Instead, he seeps into the story slowly, watching, waiting, and striking when the moment demands it. Their arcs mirror each other in eerie ways, as if one story is echoing the other. Fans argue this isn't just narrative convenience, it's a sign of inheritance. Beauty in Black may be walking the same road because it was carved for him long before he appeared. There's also the symbolic element of legacy. Norman is a man who has always feared being forgotten, even if he never says it outright. His obsession with control, with influence, with always being a step ahead, speaks to someone desperate to leave something behind. And yet, for all his power, he has no clear heir. No protege, no bloodline, at least not one acknowledged. Enter Beauty in Black, who suddenly seems to embody everything Norman represents: secrecy, dominance, control, and silence. For fans, this is too perfect to dismiss. The idea of Norman secretly leaving behind an heir, who now carries on his image, ties together both of their stories in a way that feels almost poetic, even. The gaps in Beauty in Black's backstory seem designed to fit this theory. Why doesn't he have a clear past? Why does his introduction feel incomplete compared to other major characters? The simplest answer is that his backstory is not meant to stand alone, it's meant to be revealed through his connection to Norman. If Beauty in Black were just another mysterious character, there would likely be at least a few details sprinkled in to explain his rise. But instead, we get almost nothing, as though the writers are holding back a twist. And what bigger twist could there be than the revelation of his true father? The timeline doesn't just allow the theory, it practically invites it. Every missing year in Norman's life, every cryptic line he utters, every unexplained silence in Beauty in Black's past, all of it aligns into one powerful narrative thread. Whether intentional or not, the storylines of these two men are built to connect. The past Norman never talks about could very well be the foundation of Beauty in Black's existence. And if that's the case, then the entire story is about more than just power or mystery. It's about legacy, bloodlines, and the secrets fathers leave for their sons to uncover. Stories often communicate more through symbols than words. And the mystery of whether Beauty in Black is Charles Norman's son may be one of the best examples of this. Fans argue that the writers have left behind a trail of symbolic breadcrumbs, visual cues, recurring motifs, and cryptic lines of dialogue that all point toward one conclusion: a secret bloodline connection. The symbolism is so consistent that it feels less like random design and more like a coded message for the audience to piece together. One of the most obvious symbols is the color black itself. For Norman, black has always been tied to his identity, his power, his secrecy, his ability to control situations from the shadows. Whenever Norman appears, the tone of the scene darkens, literally and metaphorically. Now look at Beauty in Black. His entire identity is rooted in the color black. It isn't just his clothing, it's his aura, his chosen name, his statement to the world. He doesn't call himself Beauty in Red or Beauty in White. He is Beauty in Black. To fans, this feels like more than coincidence. It's as though he is wearing his father's legacy, carrying Norman's symbolic mantle without openly claiming it. Another layer of symbolism lies in mirrors and reflections. In key moments, Norman has been shown standing before mirrors, as if haunted by his own reflection. These moments often suggest an inner conflict, a struggle between the man he is and the man he hides. Beauty in Black is introduced with strikingly similar imagery scenes where his silhouette appears in mirrors, glass, or shadows, never fully revealing who he is. The repetition of this visual language is powerful. It suggests that Beauty in Black is more than just another character. He is a reflection of Norman himself. In storytelling, mirrors rarely appear without meaning, and here they seem to be whispering the truth about their connection. There are also cryptic lines of dialogue that fans have obsessed over. Norman has been heard saying things like, "Some truths are better left in the dark," or "Blood binds stronger than power." At the time, these quotes seem like generic wisdom from a man who knows too much. But when Beauty in Black enters the picture, those same words feel loaded. If Norman truly has a son hidden in the story, these lines may have been the writer's way of foreshadowing it. Meanwhile, Beauty in Black himself drops hints without even realizing it. He avoids questions about his past, deflects personal topics, and once even muttered, "The shadow I carry is not mine alone." Fans latched onto this quote immediately, interpreting it as a subtle acknowledgement of Norman's looming presence in his life. Symbolism also shows up in recurring objects. Norman has long been associated with black roses, a rare and haunting flower that symbolizes power, mystery, and sometimes mourning. Beauty in Black, interestingly, has been visually tied to the same flower. In one moment, a black rose appears in the background of his introduction. In another, he picks one up and examines it silently. These small details don't go unnoticed by devoted fans. If Norman's signature symbol is the black rose, and Beauty in Black is repeatedly connected to it, then the rose itself becomes a metaphor for lineage, a legacy being passed on in secret. The creators of the story are also known for using foreshadowing as a tool. They rarely place symbols without purpose. For instance, Norman's storyline has always hinted at something unfinished that will eventually resurface. Beauty in Black's sudden arrival feels like the payoff to that foreshadowing. When viewed through the lens of symbolic storytelling, it doesn't just look like two separate arcs. It looks like a carefully constructed reveal waiting to happen. Even silence itself functions as a symbol. Norman's silence has always symbolized power. The less he says, the more others project onto him. Beauty in Black uses silence the same way, and in doing so, his very silence becomes a symbolic inheritance. It is as though both men speak through absence rather than presence, their words replaced by an atmosphere of control. Fans argue that this shared silence is not just a coincidence, but a narrative device meant to connect them across generations. Finally, there's the theme of identity hidden in plain sight. Norman's life is defined by what he hides: his secrets, his past, his true feelings. Beauty in Black is a walking extension of that theme. He is literally defined by a mask of mystery, his real identity concealed under layers of performance. In literature and film, when two characters are built around the same symbolic foundation, it almost always means they are connected. They aren't just two people with similar traits. They are two halves of the same truth, taken together. These symbolic elements, black as a color of legacy, mirrors as reflections of truth, roses as metaphors for bloodlines, silence as power, and hidden identity as the ultimate theme, form a tapestry that feels deliberate. Every symbol points in the same direction. Beauty in Black is not an isolated mystery, but the living continuation of Charles Norman's story. Whether by blood or by destiny, he embodies the shadow Norman left behind. And for fans, That shadow looks an awful lot like the shape of a sun.